Okay, so today's lesson that I'm teaching is digitizing masks. What we were supposed to be doing, or this is my mask. I showed it earlier, but this is the one I've finished. What we're supposed to be doing was choosing artwork for digitizing. So if you get the CD for June 2020, software sampler, it will be on choosing artwork for digitizing. In that lesson, or on that CD, you would have the handout, the presentation handout, images, and then the video of Debbie Lashbrook going through the lesson. It is a really great lesson. I just wanted to make masks. So in that lesson, you'll review the different types of picture files. You'll learn about resolution and color depth, how to evaluate artwork, where to find artwork, different types of artwork for digitizing, and then prepping it. Hi, Patty. What you're going to learn in my lesson instead, it's going to be a simpler lesson. It's not going to take as long, but that's okay. We're going to learn how to import a PDF, because I love that we can do that. We're going to learn about using the outlines and offsets tool, specifically the offset tool part. We're going to create a cutwork border, and then we're going to look at inserting designs and pulling only the part you want. So we're going to jump right over to our software lesson. If I touch the right buttons. That is not the right button, but no. There we go. Okay, so first things first, you need a pattern. There are a lot of different patterns you can choose to use. The kind of mask I'm making is considered a cup-shaped mask or cup-style mask. And the pattern I'm using is from Crafty Quilter. It's the Versatile Mask Pattern. And the reason I'm using that is because it was the first pattern I found online, or that was recommended via one of my Facebook friends. And that's the one that my mom and I have made the most mask of, so it's the one we're most comfortable with. Before embroidering on a mask, I do recommend making a plain one or one with just pattern fabric so that you understand the process of making it before sticking embroidery on it. There's also a cup style mask pattern from 405 Mask Makers. That's the one Emily prefers or makes a lot of. We didn't start with that one. That one came a little bit later, so I did the one we were most comfortable with. So first things first, we're going to switch over to Artwork Canvas. I've already downloaded my mask pattern. So I'm going to click on Insert Artwork. And this one's called the Versatile Face Mask Pattern. I'm going to click Import, and I only want to do select pages. Ideally, you should look at the PDF first and just choose the page that has the pattern. I know that's page 3. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to hit Enter to set it. And so with this one, the outer face mask is bigger than the inner face mask, and that's to create a casing on the side. But all I really need is the pattern. I'm going to click back over to Embroidery Canvas. And we're ready. What? That's new. Okay, so sometimes when things misbehave, which obviously it was, you can convert to curves. So I right-clicked and converted to curves, and it will behave. I'm not sure why it decided to do that right this second. It did not do it on my other computer, and it did not do it for my tester as far as I know. Okay, but anyways, so I'm just going to do the outer face mask because that's what I want embroidery on. I really don't want embroidery next to my skin. So I'm going to select the Closed Object tool, a single outline stitch, and the color red so I can see it better. And a lot of these face mask patterns are hand-drawn. So we could theoretically just digitize it using the auto digitize tools, but I find it's easier to digitize it myself. So I started at the corner with a left click. And I'm going to come to this other corner and left click. And then I'm going to right click around the curve. Left click at the point. right click down the other side. And remember, you can always use reshape if you don't like what it's doing. And for these, this is just a straight line, so I'm just going to hit enter because it will just do a straight line connecting those 2 points. So at this point, I look at it going, does that look good? I think it does. I know when I cut out patterns with scissors, they're not exact, so I'm okay if this is not exact. I think this is close enough. Yes, I could be way pickier. I'm not going to be. I'm going to hit escape, which is going to turn off my closed object tool. And I don't think this one needs modified. I mean, if I was going to, I'd play with this curve here. Actually, I'll just show you how to do it. So I selected it. I'm going to go to reshape. Reshape. There we go. And I can just move my clicks around. I can right click on the line to add another node. So I can manipulate this as much as I want. I'm going to hit escape to get out of reshape. And so I have my pattern digitized. Now, if I look at it, it specifically says that the seam allowance is 1/4 inch. Well, that's not where the black line is. That's where I'm supposed to be sewing. So I want to know where my seam allowance is because I don't want to put embroidery into the seam unless I'm wanting to have a continuous line. So my Cheshire Cat mask, where it just continues on both sides, that had embroidery into the seam allowance. But my flowers, I don't want flowers in my seam. So select the outline. We're going to go to the edit toolbox. We're going to go to outlines and offsets. We want object outlines to be unchecked. We want offset outlines to be checked. We want an offset count of 1. We want it to be a single stitch. I'm going to choose color number 3, which is green, for our offset. So I want it to go inside. And to do inside, I need a negative number. So I'm going to do negative 0.25. Guess who has a shortcut key? So I have a shortcut key for my webcam to turn on. And I just hit it. So I want it to be negative 0.25, 1 outline with a single stitch. I'm choosing color green just because I can see it better. There aren't multiple objects, so I don't really care about the common outlines, but I do want sharp corners. And there's no holes, so it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to click OK. So now I have my 1/4 inch seam allowance. It might not be completely perfect, although I think that has why it's not following that line perfectly is because this was hand drawn. And so whenever you hand draw something, it's not going to be as accurate as things done on the computer necessarily. Okay, but I have my mask. And what I'm going to do first is decorate. So I find it difficult to decorate my mask when it's going sideways, so we're going to rotate it. So I am going to select both my mask pieces. I'm going to do rotate left by 45 degrees twice. I'm actually going to grab my picture, so I clicked on my picture background, and I'm going to rotate it twice. And I'm going to put it back on. And once I get it close, I'm actually going to use my arrow keys to pop it back into place. And the reason I do this is because most of the time, with how this mask pattern is, this right here, this section right here, is a casing. And I could have embroidery on it, don't get me wrong, I could. But to make that casing, I have to sew it down, and I try not to have any stitching on top of my embroidery. It's a personal preference / annoyance when I do that to myself. So I actually want to stop on this solid line. So I want to have this on the back. Oh, which reminds me, something else we should have checked. We have this 1 inch thing, which is very important. That needs to be 1 inch. So if you want to check and make sure that your PDF came in at the right size, we're going to go to View, Measure, We're going to click on one side, hold the control key down, and just move it over to the other. And that is basically an inch. Because because it's saying like that's closer to an inch. I'm going to go with it. It's close enough. It's more important that it's within a few hundredths of an inch, even a few tenths of an inch. So close enough because I'm not actually measuring it perfectly. Okay, so decorating. That's what we're supposed to be doing. I'm going to click on the Insert Embroidery button. And then I'm going to remember that my designs are not unzipped. So I'm going to go to my downloads. I downloaded some designs, specifically from Gilded Gardens, and I'm going to stick that in my documents folder. And I remembered to do this like 30 seconds before the video was supposed to start, or live stream was supposed to start. So that's why we are doing this live. Okay, so now I can click Insert Embroidery. I'm going to go to my documents and then the design folder. And I'm going to tell it that I just want to see art designs. And I can go through, and this is a really pretty collection. That's a Bernina exclusive one. And I'm going to find one of the designs that I used. Did I skip? There we go. This is one of them. So I'm going to open it. And it's kind of obvious that I did not use this entire design. I did not use the framework around it. So what we're going to do is with it selected, we're going to right click and we're going to ungroup it. And then it's just a matter of deleting what we don't want. And I'm spending more time deleting close to, and actually I'm going to turn the background off because that will help. But I want to get all the little pieces that are close to it gone. I don't care as much about the stuff on the outside. That will be easier to get rid of later. And basically I'm also looking at any straight lines because the flower doesn't really have any straight lines. And actually, now I can look over at my color film. I can delete color number, oh wait, we're gonna hit undo. We're gonna delete color number 6 first, and then color number 7. And then I'm gonna take color number 4, which is a black outline, which was really cool with the original design. And I'm gonna make it color number 6, which is what I actually stitched mine out for. Now I can bring my JPEG back. I'm going to select color number 6, hold shift, select color number 1 in my color film. So I have all parts of my flower. I'm going to right click and I'm going to group it. And now I can move it to be what I want. And what I did is I actually rotated it so that it would sit upright. And I pulled it a little bit away from the center seam. Okay, so I have one side of the mask. Well, I want my other side. So I am going to take my mask pattern. Actually, I'm just going to select everything over here. We're going to go to the mirror merge toolbox, and we're going to mirror merge horizontally. And I'm just going to stick it on the other side. And I'm actually going to take this flower and delete it so that I can put my new one on top of my pattern. Yes, I could take my pattern, copy it, paste it, mirror image it, but I can also just redo. So insert embroidery again. We're going to find my blue flower, which is this one. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to ungroup it. I'm going to turn the picture off so I stop clicking on it. And I'm going to delete the pieces that are around it. Although if I look over here, I could just delete this and that would be way easier than what I originally did. So I'm going to select all of this, and I'm going to look at my color fill, make sure I have it all. I'm going to group it. And this is not the same size that I have on my mask because I decided that it needed to be bigger. So I'm going to kind of put it where I want it over here. And I'm going to use my handle to make it bigger. And I'm going to go ahead and mirror image it because that's how it looks on my mask. And use my arrow keys to just kind of put it where I want it. Okay, so I have both sides of my mask decorated. So let's look at what we can do. A couple different extra things we can do. Now, one thing we would want to do before stitching this out, I want the red outline to go last. So I'm going to move it to the end. And I actually don't need the green outline. I'm not going to make it go away yet because I want to use it in a little bit, but you don't want the seam allowance to stitch out. So if I was going to, or when I stitched this out, because I stitched it out, I cut around like really close to my red line, my red outline. Not that I stitched in red, but you know, stitched really close to my red outline. I pulled off all my stabilization. I did use heavyweight tearaway. It is my current favorite stabilizer because most of the time it holds everything. Please do not use polymesh. Polymesh shrinks when it gets really hot, and since these need to be washed in hot water, polymesh is not the answer. I thought about it and then I thought better of it because I almost did use it. My mom embroidered one of the Cheshire Cat ones, and she used medium weight tearaway, which comes in black. And she did not rip hers out, and it actually gives a lot of stabilization. Like the mask stays its shape better. I'm just not sure how well it's gonna do with washing because we made these like yesterday or the day before, so haven't had time to wash them yet, or haven't needed to yet. Okay, but anyways, some other fun things you can do. We can create a cutwork outline, but first I'm going to do a zigzag outline. So one of the things I like to do on my mask a lot of times is after I cut out my fabric, I like to seal the edges so that they don't ravel on me. And that is something we can do. Now, how I figured this out, because this is not in the PDF that I will be posting on BERNINAOKC.com. But I'm just going to talk it through. So I wanted a zigzag outline. So with nothing selected, I right-clicked on the zigzag outline. And I see that my zigzag is 2 millimeters. Oh, wait. Nope. One sec. We're going to go to metric. The width of my zigzag is 3 millimeters. Whenever you use the offset tool, and with the zigzag in particular, the zigzag is in the middle of the line that's created. So I'm going to cancel out of that. I'm going to select both my red outlines. I'm going to go to the edit toolbox, outlines and offsets. I am still in metric, and I'm going to do 1.5 millimeters. Oh, hey, look, I hit that shortcut key again. So 1.5 millimeters. I'm going to change it to a zigzag stitch. I'm going to change it to a color I haven't used. I still want sharp corners, and I'm going to say okay. It does look kind of funky, so I'm going to select it, and I'm going to turn off the underlay. Because the zigzag is very close to a satin stitch, it always has an underlay. Hi, Susan. So with this, I have made it where if I zoom in, my zigzag is perfectly on the edge, and it will hold that in. That does mean if you're pulling out your stabilizer will not pull out from here if you're using a tearaway. I actually just trimmed my tearaway really close to the zigzag. I did not get feedback on whether that was a good thing or a bad thing. Since I sewed 1 mask and my mom sewed 3. But that is a way to add a zigzag outline to it. So let's say we didn't want to do that. Oops, it went away. Let's talk about how we can add cutwork to it, because we can. And we don't even have to use DesignWorks software, although you could, and it would technically be faster. But we're just going to do it in our software. So I have the seam allowance selected. I'm going to choose a satin outline. I'm actually going to right click on the satin outline because I want our offset to be offset. When I hit apply and say OK, the satin stitches to the inside of the 1/4 inch line instead of being in the middle of it. So now with it still selected, I can go to the cutwork toolbox, add a cutwork border. I want it to be cut. I'm going to hit cancel and change back to US. Select that green again, add cutwork border, and it's a cut border. Oh hey, there's that. I am really good at hitting that shortcut key. We want a 1/4 inch offset. I'm going to uncheck include holes. It shouldn't matter. I'm going to say OK. And remember that we have to do these individually. So I'm going to just continue to click the wrong thing. Add cutwork border. We want to be cut. There we go. So if I hide this and I turn, I have a cutwork border, but it doesn't have points. But what we can do is we can go to reshape and I can add points. So I'm going to add a sharp point there, and I'm actually going to delete nodes, and I can pull it over. And you're going to have to do that at every corner, because some of the corners are almost right, but they're not quite. On the true corners, I can just hit spacebar and make that a square node, and I can actually delete the other ones. That will get me a straighter line. In this case, I'm only going to delete the bottom one. This one, I'm just going to kind of pull down a little. Actually, no, that's a square node. I can delete it. It'll be straight till it gets to there, and then it'll start curving. Okay, so I have my cut, even if you can't see it very well. And I'm going to unhide all, but I'm going to select my cut. And I could just do all those steps again, or ideally you would do the cutting before, like you'd create the cut work outline before you started decorating. Hi Kim. But what I can do is I have it selected. I can go to the mirror merge toolbox. I can mirror merge horizontal like I did before, and just make them match the red. Maybe. There we go. And I can use my arrow keys if I want to make it perfect, or sort of perfect. Okay, if I'm doing cut work though, I do not need that red outline. So I'm actually going to delete my red outline, and I'm going to delete my green. I'm going to turn the picture of my face mask off. So this is what I'm going to have. Now if I look in my color film, it's cutting 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't have time for that, so we're going to fix that. So we're going to open up our cutwork Docker. I'm going to select both. So I click on one, hold Control down, click on the other. I'm going to say combine selected, and now it's only cutting each one once, which is totally what we want. Since I have that, I can now close. There we go, close my Docker. Why is there a 3? I don't know. We're not going to pay attention to that. Now we need to see if it fits in the hoop. So I'm going to turn my hoop on, and I'm going to choose the maxi hoop. I don't think these fit in a large oval. That's not to say you can't do it in a large oval. Let's just see. So I have my large oval selected. I'm in the multi-hooping toolbox. I'm going to rotate right twice. So no, these masks don't fit in a large oval. What you can do is fit your embroidery design that you want to embroider in the large oval and then use the knife tool to cut off the top section of the mask. You still will have to use your mask pattern to cut it out, but you can make this work. I'm going to go to select a hoop and we're going to choose the maxi hoop. That is what I use to embroider mine out. I'm going to select the hoop, rotate it twice. And at this point I can move it so that they all fit. Now, depending on your machine, when you bring it in, it is very possible that it will be like, these don't fit, and it's because how it's centering. You just have to move it around till it fits. We're going to go back to select a hoop because I forgot to tell it that we need the 44C foot on. You only need the 44C if you're doing cut work, but it's important that it fits using that foot. And each time you change your hoop, you do have to re-rotate. And I believe those are green. Yes, these are actually green. They just don't look it. So this does fit, and it would be good to go to cut out. To get out of this view, you just go back to the Digitize toolbox, and you can see that everything is fitting. So let's go back to my PowerPoint. And this is how I stitched it out. I actually did not use my cutwork tool, although it was really cool that I could do it, and I could cut a lot of layers at once. So I could cut my lining and then just cut off the excess. I was in a time crunch, and it is easier for me to work on things in the living room than it is in my sewing room. My living room is mostly baby-proofed. My sewing room is not. So I can leave Ella to play in the living room, but she wants to be able to see me at all times. So that's why I did not use my cutwork tool. So how I stitched out, I did use a basting box because I did not hoop my fabric. And then I embroidered my motifs, my 2 flowers. And then I embroidered the outlines of the mask. Or you could change to your cutwork tool and cut them out. And then you just finish the mask according to the pattern you chose. So thank you for watching. And I hope you got something out of this. Let me know if you did or not.